I'm a kid in the Middle East, sitting on the rocks with my father watching the sun go down. Every evening, the same scene. I point to the horizon and tell him I wanted to really go out on a boat someday. Row out far enough to see where the sun actually disappeared. My father would laugh. He never said no, but he never explained why I couldn't. Years later, we'd get a boat. We'd go out a long way. And I remember thinking that one point, we're getting close. The sun was setting in front of us, and I could almost see where it dropped. Except the horizon stayed exactly where it was. Always ahead, always the same distance, no matter how far we went. I'm Camper Bull, founder of Venture Game, and I've thought about that boat ride a lot more than you'd guess for a business person. The team at Strategic Coach taught me decades later why I should have been thinking about it. Most of us are doing the same thing every single week of our adult lives. We're chasing a horizon. The horizon, by definition, is the thing that always stays ahead. If you're the founder between $500,000 and $2 million in revenue, here's the question. Do you leave most weeks feeling behind, even when the actual results are getting better? Don't answer it in your head. Pull up the last 12 months on your dashboard. Pull it up in your bank account. Now compare it with the bar that you have in your head right now. Most founders at this stage carry a moving bar. Every time the business gets closer, the bar moves. Because the moment you reach a goal, your brain has already invented the next one. The result? You're improving every quarter and you feel like you're falling behind every Monday. Let me tell you a story. I was running a launch, and some of you have heard pieces of this, for a client whose book ended up number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list. 70,000 copies in 2.5 months. It was a great run. The company went from $500,000 to $10 million during that run. And we bought a physical house with that launch money. It was known as the Launch House. Very creative, I know. Where the team could get together and work. We had goals written on the back of the door. As you walked out and went in, you'd always see it. Sales numbers, signups, conversions, whatever it was that day. And every time we got close to one, anytime we were within sight of it, the founder would walk over, scratch it out, and put a bigger one in. A bigger number, a bigger scope, more ambitious target. Nobody ever felt like they were accomplishing anything. And we were doing one of the most successful launches of our career, of anybody's career really. And nobody in that house felt like they were winning. Because the goalposts, they kept moving. Stop. Look at what you've done. I'm not going to tell you that it fixed anything instantly. It didn't. But it was the first time in months that anybody in that house actually looked back instead of forward. What we saw on the door, the original goals, scratched out, written over, was a record. Not a record of failure to keep up with our own ambition. A record of every single milestone we'd already hit and decided it didn't count. Confidence is a performance asset. You build it deliberately, the same way you'd build any other capability that drives business. There are researchers at Harvard, Teresa Amble and Stephen Kramer, who spent years studying knowledge workers, tracking thousands of daily journal entries, trying to figure out what actually drives motivation in people who do the kind of thinking work that builds companies. It wasn't recognition. It really wasn't pay. It wasn't purpose in the abstract sense. It was truly progress. They called it the progress principle. Of all the things that boost motivation on any given workday, the most important is perception that you've made a meaningful movement forward. Not whether you have, whether you perceive you have. That's what gets eaten when you keep moving the goalpost on yourself. Your perception is your own progress. You're objectively better. Subjectively, you're chronically behind. Subjectively behind people make worse decisions, take fewer risks, and burn out faster than people who feel like they're winning. But camper, you might say, isn't that just the cost of being ambitious? Isn't always wanting more the engine that built the company in the first place? Maybe for a while. But here's the trouble. The engine that builds the company between 1 and 1 million is not the same engine that builds it between 1 million and 5 million. The first one runs on hunger, the second one on confidence. If you stay on the hunger engine past where it works, you don't get to go faster. You just feel worse, longer, while the business does fine without you noticing. So here's the move. You start a progress ledger. Doesn't matter what tool, a document, a whiteboard, a note on your phone, the back of the door. Once a week, you write down 3 things. What did the company do this week that it could not have done a year ago? Not what's still broken, not what's still on the list. What capabilities, systems, relationships, or revenue exist this week that didn't exist 52 weeks ago? Your audit progress, not just your problems. The standard is improvement from the last checkpoint, not perfection, not the moving target your brain invented this morning while you were brushing your teeth. I had a client who started doing this in her Monday morning team meeting. 5 minutes at the top. 3 wins. From the prior week, from the prior month, or the prior year. Specific and concrete. The energy in that room shifted in 3 weeks. Not because anything in the business changed yet, because everyone was finally allowed to see what they'd actually built. Confidence, it drives speed. Confidence comes from perceiving progress. Perceived progress comes from looking at the ledger you've been keeping but never reading. Now, before we wrap up, 3 things to take from this. 1, confidence is a performance asset, not a personality trait. You build it deliberately. 2, confidence comes from perceived progress, which comes from looking back at what you've done, not forward on what you haven't. And 3, the simplest practice that fixes this is a 5-minute weekly progress ledger. What did we do this week we couldn't have done a year ago? If you want a 12-month wake audit, the 3 questions you run on yourself this weekend that takes about 10 minutes and shows you specifically what you've built that you've been refusing to count. It's in the description and pinned to the comments below this episode. What I'd love you to do is open your calendar to this date a year ago and look at the one decision you were trying to make then. Just one, if you can even remember it. Then look at where the decision sits today. Made it, not made it, different, bigger, smaller, doesn't really matter. Just look at it. That's your wake. That's the line you've been drawing without realizing. Put the one that surprised you most in the comments below. The thing you didn't realize you built. Let's continue this conversation and let's all learn from each other. I look forward to talking to you soon. Camper. Thanks for tuning into today's episode on the strategy session, where we take your business from stuck to unstoppable. Here's another video I think you'd enjoy. If you found these insights valuable, remember to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the bell for notifications on our latest videos. Remember, you're not just marketing, you're making history with Venture Gained.